Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin the presentation, I'm going to begin with our land acknowledgement. Generations of people have lived and built dreams on this land. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. The BIPOC Arts Network and Fund acknowledges that we live on the ancestral lands of the Karankawa, Nakokisa, Atakapa, Ishak, Tonkawa, Sana, and Coeducan First Nations, and that this region, that is also called the Greater Houston region and the Gulf Coast, is built on their unceded land. We pay respects to our elders, past and present. What we build together is a tribute to them and to our future generations. So today, I'm going to give you an overview of what we are going to be doing. It's an overview of the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. I'll talk about this opportunity in this round and what brings us here together. I will also then talk about a little bit about fiscal sponsorship and what is a fiscal sponsor to give the context. And then we'll be turning it over. I'll be turning it over to the Community Arts Collective, Mr. Scales, and then Julia Barbosa-Landois from Fresh Arts, and also Ms. Michelle Barnes and Janice Bond from the Community Arts Collective, in order to give us a little bit about their examples of their fiscal sponsors programs. And then we'll spend the bulk of the time on Q&A. Again, the chat is there for questions, and there's also the Q&A box for that. So about the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. So many windows open and still not the right one. Okay, sorry. About BAMF, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is a multi-year initiative dedicated to providing resources that support the vibrant BIPOC arts community of Greater Houston, fully displaying their power, values, and traditions. We are excited to introduce this initiative this initiative with our first round of funding that will provide $2 million to eligible organizations and fiscally sponsored artist collectives in the Greater Houston's Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, and other communities of color. For those of you who actually joined the information session earlier, earlier last week, some of this information will be the same, but we will continue in this aspect. Our funding partners. This groundbreaking effort was born out of the Ford Foundation America's Cultural Treasures Initiatives, which in September 2020 committed an unprecedented $156 million, which in September 2020, to support BIPOC arts communities across the country in response to the devastating economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The Regional Grant Making Initiative invested $35 million across 7 regions, including Greater Houston, and invited local philanthropic partners to match funding in support of multi-year grant programs for cultural groups of color with exceptional regional or local significance. The Houston Endowment and Ford Foundation led the way for BAMF's creation, equally donating $5 million, with additional generous contributions from Kinder Foundation, the Powell Foundation, the Brown Foundation, Inc., and the Cullen Foundation. Unlike other regional initiatives, BAMF is structured as a collaborative, multi-phase fund and a resource network guided by funders, artists, and nonprofit leaders in the region. Acknowledging historical underinvestment in Houston BIPOC cultures and arts communities, the initiative aims to increase philanthropic support to collective grant making and facilitate new connections between funders and prospective grantees through shared decision-making authority. Our focus. We are focusing on grant funding, advocacy, and community building network initiatives. Network initiatives that revolutionize the local funding landscape, break down silos within arts ecosystem, and welcome everybody to support and learn from our BIPOC arts communities. Essential to this is our approach. We have created an opportunity that is looking at reducing the barriers to entry, and that we've asked pertinent questions that focus on storytelling that can serve in other situations, and that related information that you already have or we believe that you could already need. Essential in this is that the idea of network. Part of our name is network, and we value collaboration and learning. We focus on an ecosystemic approach and how we each are a valued part of a larger system. We believe that by working together, we strengthen each other and the region. We can work in and be in community with each other. So, fiscal sponsors and fiscal sponsor relationships. So why did we expand to fiscal sponsors? American Cultural Treasures provided support to nonprofit organizations across the nation. So for Houston, we are following that model, but we're also recognizing that there are other ways that programs and entities in Houston function. We've seen that there are small founder-driven programs that have not had the capacity or the reason to incorporate formally. We've seen artist-led series or collectives that are focused on programs and not necessarily infrastructure. And we understand that the management of boards, the reporting, and other administrative components that are necessary as being a 501c3 nonprofit organization is something that programs and organizations cannot manage on an annual basis. So we are engaging in this process to bring in fiscal sponsored, to bring in artist collectives and these programs, these long-term programs through fiscal sponsorship, and believe that through the relationship with fiscal sponsors and the relationship through this connection that we will continue to build a stronger network in this. Okay, let's go with our operating definitions. So what is a fiscal sponsor? A fiscal sponsor is a contractual relationship between a 501c3 nonprofit organization and a group or individual whose activities fall within the sponsoring organization's mission. This relationship enables the 501c3 to extend the certain benefits of being nonprofit to the sponsor groups without the other group having to go through filing a nonprofit tax status. This is from the Fractured Atlas, and they provided that definition. In terms of collectives and let me actually name that in terms of that. We are, for the operating definition for collectives, is that this refers to an artist-led entity that comes together to support a mission beyond individual artistic practices. Many collectives also demonstrate a non-hierarchical leadership structure and commonly utilize consensus-driven decision-making. We are also supporting fiscally sponsored programs. So for the purpose of this funding opportunity, this refers to collective or organization of artists and creative who are focused on community members operating without a 501c3 nonprofit or designation. They must have a history of working together in some capacity towards some community benefit and are demonstrating leadership for our BIPOC cultural communities. So, who can be a fiscal sponsor? Thank you, Fresh Arts, for this definition. Legally, any existing tax-exempt nonprofit organization can act as a fiscal sponsor, including a church or library, but because of legal complexity and administration required, not all nonprofits will do so. If you're looking for a fiscal sponsor, it is best to partner with an organization with which you have a good relationship and or one that has an existing fiscal sponsorship program. And so those are three of the models that we'll be talking to today. What does that mean for this opportunity? So what we're trying to talk about is that if you're an artist collective entity or program, that you will be entering into a relationship with your fiscal sponsor. It is a legal and financial relationship. That in this moment, that BAMF, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, will actually be working through our fiscal sponsor, the Houston Arts Alliance, and will be contracting with your fiscal sponsor. The money will be going to the fiscal sponsor, and the fiscal sponsor will be sharing that money directly with you. This fiscal sponsor is responsible to get money to you and then any other requirements with the fiscal sponsor contract. We ask in the application that there is a contract that will be submitted so that we have clear ideas that you all have gone through the conversation and that there's legally binding information. Recognize that there are fees and administrative costs involved, that most fiscal sponsored programs do cost a percentage of the grant. And part of this is to make sure that the organizations themselves can continue, survive, and do the work. so that they also are, that, let me just actually put it in another way, is that we are, as we said, we're building an ecosystem. We want to make sure that all of our sectors are continue to thrive, and that we acknowledge that there are many organizations that might act as a fiscal sponsor, but fiscal sponsorship isn't always easy, or it's not very simple. And that one of these ideas is that we are building in a relationship, and that they have an administrative support in order to continue and be able to be here for the long term. So the idea is that we're hoping that this opportunity creates a reason for you to engage with your fiscal sponsor into a relationship that is not just like that, of course, is about this opportunity by the end of this year, but then also creates an opportunity in order for you to have a long-term relationship and be in community with your fiscal sponsor and the other sponsees that they work with. So that's a lot of talking on my part, and I know that we're going to be opening up to a number of questions at the end. So let me just go ahead and but before we go into questions, I wanted to actually invite our presenters and to talk a little bit about their program and what the requirements are and what the relationship would be with them. We're going to start with Mr. Scales and the Community Music Center of Houston.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Scales, Managing Director of the Community Music Center of Houston. We've been around since 1979, and we've been fiscally sponsoring organizations since 1983. For the BIPOC initiative, we have somewhat expanded and simplified our fiscal sponsorship requirements. We normally focus on music organizations. Some of our current fiscal groups or grantees that we're sponsoring are Conrad Johnson Orchestra, two opera groups, and I'm trying to think of, there's a name of one group that's a tuba league. I have to remember that. That's a unique group of tuba players. We also have sponsored various community festivals. But for the BIPOC initiative, we've simplified again our processes. Groups are being requested to submit an application, to submit a resume or organizational history, go through an interview, and sign an agreement. We are requesting that this be done by, if you're interested in going through our organization, that this be done by Friday, October the 15th. Now, sometimes people may not be able to meet those deadlines. So if you're not able to, you can please contact us and we may be able to work with you beyond that time. For more information, on the screen is our website, cmchouston.org. You will go there and you will find copies of these guidelines, our applications, and our contract agreement. Let's see, I guess that's all I have to say at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Scales. I think that we'll open up to questions at the end with everybody in this aspect. And thank you for all of the Community Music Center of Houston's long-term dedication to communities and to music. And I think that we're going to go to our Fresh Arts next.
Hello. Sorry, one question. Sixto, are you the one controlling the advancement of the slides?
Yes, I am. Okay. That works for you. Just tell me and I'll move the
Okay,
slides.
I'll go like this one. What do you think?
Okay.
My name is Julia Barbosa Landois, and I am the grant writer for Fresh Arts. We're an arts service organization that does professional development for artists in the Houston region, as well as public art projects. And that's our website. Since 2013, we've had a fiscal sponsorship program that's been opening doors to new streams of support for our city's artist-led projects and organizations of all artistic disciplines. The program provides fiscal oversight for utilizing charitable funds, as well as consultation services to enhance professional skills. This is pictures of a couple of our fiscally sponsored projects right now, Theatrics and Dance Africana. So our regular fiscal sponsorship is pretty robust, but it also takes a little bit longer for that process to get in motion. So we created a new and simplified fiscal sponsorship opportunity specifically for organizations and collectives that need sponsorship to apply for the BANF grant. So the next 2 slides, I'm just gonna go over the difference between those 2 programs. The Fresh Arts BANF Fiscal Sponsorship Program has a really fast application turnaround. There's no application fee. Sixto talked about administrative fees, but for all of us in this opportunity, those administrative fees are generously being provided by BANF to create more accessibility, which is awesome. If you decide to be fiscally sponsored with us, we'll have an online BANF application assistance kind of peer lab webinar for you, and then acknowledgement on our website. And you're just obligated to do a short final survey with us. Next, please. Our full fiscal sponsorship program, you have a lot more benefits, but there are also more obligations. And I just wanted to show you the difference, because if you go to our website, you're gonna see a lot of stuff about the regular fiscal sponsorship. So I just want you to let you know. And if you are interested in this other fiscal sponsorship program, after the BANF grant gets going, then you're welcome to apply to that as well. But we just want to get you in this other door first, if you want to go with us. So the full fiscal sponsorship, you can receive tax-deductible donations for your organization. You can apply for other grants that require fiscal sponsorship. We do one-on-one grant application reviews, monthly expense reports for your records. You get a page on our website with a donate button, and project promotion on our Fresh Arts social media, and then there's a help desk. The obligations, though, there are more. There's a $100 application fee. There's a 7% administrative fee applied to all sponsorship income, because we have a staff member that is dedicated to helping you. It's a longer application process, and you have to submit your grant drafts for advanced feedback before those applications are due, so that we can give you that feedback. And you do an annual report. Okay, so to apply for our BANF fiscal sponsorship, here's the timeline. We'd like you to apply through Submittable by the end of the day on October 11th. That gives us a few days to go through your application and then notify you by October 15th if you are eligible to be sponsored by us. It's really mostly just an eligibility kind of test, and also making sure that you're eligible for BANF, so that we're not wasting your time and nobody's time at BANF is wasted, and everybody's just kind of on the same page. Then that following Monday, we'll have a little live webinar for you to assist with your BANF application. And on the 22nd is when your BANF application is due. These are a couple more of our other fiscally sponsored projects: Garza Studios in El Segundo Barrio, Texas Salsa Congress. So for more information on fiscal sponsorship, the other currently fiscally sponsored projects we have, and a link to the BANF sponsorship application, you can visit our website. And you can also contact me. That's my email at the bottom. I want to share my screen really quick, if that's okay. Oh, no, I can't.
Now you can.
Oh, okay.
Is it working?
Yes. Mhm. Okay, so you can see the fiscal sponsorship website, webpage here. I just wanted to show you, since we have these two different programs, when you go to the fiscal sponsorship page, at the top here is where you see the stuff about the Banff opportunity. If you scroll down, you can learn about other fiscally sponsored projects in the larger program. But here where it says apply, that's for the regular program. So go to the paragraph that's about Banff. And if you click here, then it'll take you to fiscal sponsorship application for Banff in Submittable. And we tried to make the application relatively simple, and there's overlap with stuff that you have to turn in for Banff so that you, in doing the application, you're kind of preparing yourself for the application that you do after that. So there's overlap and you're not doing twice the work. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julia. So again, part of the what we are trying to demonstrate is that each one of these fiscal sponsors and with every fiscal sponsor, there's different types of relationships and different opportunities that they are providing, and that these are a sample of the types of work that the organizations will provide. And these are the types of questions that we hope that you will be able to engage in as well in this process. Let me make sure that, yes, let me go back to sharing screen, and then we can now move to the Community Artists Collective and Ms. Michelle Barnes and Janice Bond.
Greetings of peace, everyone. Sixto, thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel and to provide support for artists, groups, and organizations to benefit from this band opportunity. Listening to the history and the work of the Community Music Center and Fresh Arts, I'm reminded of how important it is to collaborate. And I'm so happy to have survived this long to recognize that collaborations are valued more broadly in our arts communities across the country, to the extent that that Banff has been created by multiple foundations and other support. The Community Artists Collective has existed since 1987 to make the arts more accessible in underserved communities. Our formal mission is to provide the educational and cultural link among African-American artists in all communities, inspiring unlimited creativity. Historically, following the examples of the Community Music Center that helped us to obtain our 501c3, along with TALA, Texas Accountants and Lawyers for the Arts, we have provided umbrella or sponsorship, fiscal sponsorship support for groups who have visions and ideas of contributing to the community through primarily the visual arts. So historically, we have collaborated with Print Houston, All Real Radio, other individuals and organizational initiatives to contribute artistically to our community. We have a simple process that Janice will expand on a bit. Our program areas include education, exhibition, community development, and entrepreneurship. We hope that groups and individuals will, especially groups through BANF, will identify points of alignment through our programming and mission and their own, so that we can have a seamless opportunity to support each other through this effort. Janice.
Thank you. Thank you. Great images. So you can go to the next slide. So Janice Bond here, directly in support of Community Artists Collective. in developing and extending this BANF fiscal sponsorship opportunity to the hyperlocal artist community. And as Michelle mentioned, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to see us continue to connect and grow collectively as groups, but also, as an institution, being able to support the present and the future of what's to come in the Houston arts community. So for BANF, the fiscal sponsorship process is just a bit different, but we'll start in general. You'll be joining CAC in the goals to continue to build and deepen relationships, continue to create spaces of intentional learning, growth, troubleshooting, vulnerability, trust, and information sharing, developing, expand, and deepening relationships with other artists, collectives, and organizations, again, shaping the present and future of arts and culture in Houston, supporting in the creation of more fiscally supported intersectionality amongst BIPOC artists in the Houston area, and of course, encouraging the collaboration and community-centered thinking. And so why is that important? Well, the intention of CAC offering this opportunity to artists and collectives in the Houston area is not just so that there can be fiscal support, but we're really invested in making sure that we're communicating with each other, that we're able to really see, and I say we, the collective we as institutions, artists, individuals, that we're able to really see and be open and share and be vulnerable and really look at spaces where we can support each other and growing throughout the process. And so beyond a general pass through, as far as fiscal sponsorship, CAC is really looking with the sponsees that do come on board that are approved to develop a bit of a community. Now, this doesn't require a ton of time investment on your part, but do keep in mind that prior to final approval, selected applicants for fiscal sponsorship will be required to agree and participate in about 6 gatherings between the award announcement date and August 1st, 2022. Now that sounds like a lot, but 4 of them are virtual check-ins online. And so those, I'll start from the top. First, there'll be a fiscal sponsorship orientation. Depending on things, it may be in person, virtual, hybrid of both, we'll see. Second, there'll be the 4 check-ins. And again, those will be virtual, Zoom, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And it really is just an opportunity for everyone to share out, et cetera. And also note if they're having any challenges or if there are more spaces of collaboration that have been created from the beginning of the start of your project or initiative. And then lastly, there'll be a community share and presentation in person. Most likely it'll be at CAC, but that's to be determined. So again, just keeping in mind, if you are looking to go through CAC, Community Artists Collective, as your fiscal sponsor, it's important to note that you will be required to engage a little bit more over the next couple of months. Next slide. Now, there is a questionnaire that's available, and you see an email address at the bottom, janice@thecollective.org. If you're interested, and there will be an addition to the website very soon, but in the meantime, if you know that you're immediately interested in having CAC as your fiscal sponsor, please email me directly, and I'll make sure that you receive the questionnaire today. The questionnaire, fiscal sponsorship questionnaire, which is not the same as the application, is quite a bit shorter. We're just asking some general questions. Needs to be completed by 9 p.m. Monday, October 11. And accepted applicants will be notified by Friday, October 15th. Again, as some of our colleagues mentioned, this gives you enough time for us to look and see if there's a fit on both sides. And if there isn't, you still have enough time to move forward with your application. But we're really excited to receive any applications from you all. Again, please no telephone calls, any questions that you have. If I can answer them, I absolutely will. And if they need to be directed to Sixto or other people from BANF, then I'll let you know. But we're really excited for all of the new ideas. Some have already started to come in. and working with you all as well as our other colleagues to make this happen for the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Janice. What I also wanted to just point out is that these are 3 examples of fiscal sponsor programs that have been working for decades in terms of the Community Music Center and of Houston. And also, I know Fresh Arts has been doing it for quite some time as well. These are not the only fiscal sponsor programs. There are other fiscal sponsor programs that are there, and there's the national organization like Fractured Atlas. But the time period in terms of that if you don't have a fiscal sponsor relationship, the time period for the BAMF grant is pretty short. So you might not be able to do this. So if you already have an existing fiscal sponsor relationship, that's awesome. You can figure that out. The fiscal sponsor does not have to be physically located in the greater Houston area. The fiscal sponsor can be national. It can be national. But the work for the applicant must be local and must be within the 9-county region. So the questions that as we can say, it is about relationships. It is not just about how you can get the money. What we are trying to encourage is, where do you already have relationships? If you don't have a fiscal sponsorship already, we have 3 examples of what that might be and what that might look like. But also, do you have relationships with other nonprofit organizations, or where do you want to build relationships? So we also know that Harris County Cultural Arts Council has some fiscal sponsor programs. DanceSource Houston might have programs, and that you also can be thinking about churches and potentially nonprofit art spaces. Please recognize that this is about inviting and engaging people in a relationship, and that we're asking to support each other in order to make this happen. And that unfortunately, this is a short timeline in terms of our turnaround for the application, which was necessary because we are working within the calendar year. But please try to continue to be thoughtful and empathetic in relationship to how that goes. I'm going to open it up to Q&As, and we're going to stop the share. And so that if there are questions that you all have, please put them in the chat, or put it into Q&A. So I guess one of the things that all of y'all, and Yedi, thank you for being here. Yedi Quivera is the interim grants manager from Houston Arts Alliance, and Yedi and the grants team of HAA is supporting BAMF in all this work. So I'm definitely appreciative of them and their work in this. So a question to all of you all as panelists. In terms of the relationship, this has been a really quick turnaround, but I think that you mentioned a little bit about the relationship, and I know that Janice and Community Arts Collective is talking about the immediate aspects, but what is an ideal project for you to be a fiscal sponsor, to come to you or to talk to you about how to become a fiscal sponsor, or what is an ideal program or project or collective that should come to you in order to ask about fiscal sponsorship?
Who are you directing that to?
To any of you all, as we get some more questions in the chat.
Well, just as in personal relationships, I think that professional relationships are hinged on compatible visions and ideas for projects. So there shouldn't be any opposing or contradictory suggestions of programs or visions. Know what the organization's missions are, respective missions are. Look for the overlap and other opportunities to collaborate in a friendly, cooperative manner. Cooperation is the height of civilization, and we ought to be modeling that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Anyone else? We do have a few questions.
Sure. I think that Janice, you want to read some questions from the chat, if possible?
Absolutely. There is one question. We are a church in Brazoria County. We have 2 stage plays a year. Who do you recommend that we connect with?
So as a church, I believe you have your own 501c3. If you don't have your own 501c3, check in with, I'd set up a time in order to speak with us, in order to have a little bit more details in this. But if you do not have your own 501c3, who else in your community do you work with that has a 501c3 aspect, or is there another arts organization that that is not applying for this that you might be able to work with? But email us for more specific responsiveness.
Thank you, Sixto. Next question. Can a nonprofit submit for the grant and fiscally sponsor someone else?
Absolutely. So as you can see, like in a community arts collective or a community music center, also might be able to, they can apply as well. Just recognize that, and they can apply as and then they will be a sponsor for other applications. When you go into this submittable application and the online portal, the application is being filled out by you as the applicant, and that there's only some information that you will need from the fiscal sponsors. So the idea in that is you have access to the information, you have access to your stories and your narrative, and you're the one who'll be responsible for filling out the application. And you just need to have the relationship with your fiscal sponsor beforehand and in the conversation in order to have the contract signed, the EIN number, which is the employee identification number, and make sure that who's going to be the primary contact from the fiscal sponsor who will be signing contracts.
Thank you. Next question. Does the 501c3 have to have prior fiscal sponsorship programs, or can this be their first?
It can be there first.
Great. Next question. If we have multiple projects, do we just submit for one? Can we submit multiple applications, or would you prefer we maybe do an umbrella program? This is a good one, 60.
So let me I think we need to break that down a little bit more. The BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is not funding projects. We are funding organizations and initiatives. This is about long-term sustainability and support for our communities and for our organizations. It is not about a specific idea or specific reflection of that. So if you are, when you look at the application, it is about what you as an organization or you as a collective will be able to do, and not just about a specific program, and not about a specific play or a specific exhibition. So as I said in a prior info session, if you are doing work in, it's not about funding the exhibition, but it's about funding the series of exhibitions or the series of works, and demonstrate why the series of all of this actually is building the program and the support that you are for the community and for the BIPOC communities that you're serving. So there is a separation in terms of that. I think that in terms of the umbrella organization, as a fiscal sponsor, the fiscal sponsor should just be responsible for their own, the fiscal sponsor will be only doing their own application, and that every other organization, any other collective or any other entity should be responsible for filling out their the application on their own. Clearly there's a relationship and y'all can help with each other, but I do believe that this is helping the organizations and the artists to stand and for their long-term work. And so figure out, I think, what's the easiest way. And if there's more details, and if that's not all completely clear, just go ahead and send me an email and with more specifics, and then we'll try to answer that. So that's info@houstonbanf.org. So, and basically, you should only be submitting one application per organization. I'm sorry, per applicant. So that, yes, you one application per organization. So that Community Artists Collective is only submitting for Community Artists Collective. If there is Community Music Center for Houston, as he mentioned before, the Tuba Project will be applying. Community Center for Houston will be applying. Those are two separate applications.
Thank you. We have a few more. We have time. This one is answered somewhat, but I feel like it may be great to repeat. What if the nonprofit we work with does not have a formal fiscal sponsor program? What next steps do we need to take to complete the process, both for our 501c3 partner and our organization?
So if they don't have if you're working with an organization that doesn't have an official program, please make sure that they're willing to take this on, because being a fiscal sponsor, does have liabilities, does have costs, and does have a relationship that's necessary. If they're willing to do this, then they need to just be able to provide the EIN number, be able to identify who is going to be the person who will be signing the contract, and who and then having a contract between the 501c3 and the collective or the leader of the collective in that aspect. If you have specific questions on what that might look like, just go ahead and email us with more details. But essentially, ask us some of those questions and we'll try to be able to be of more service. If it is the first time you're doing this 501c3, please think about the aspect of what type of relationship that you actually are doing, and have you thought this through? We will have samples of what there are samples of what a contract for fiscal sponsorships will look like, and so that we can actually share those with you in order to make sure that happens.
Thank you. We have a few more. In submitting the grant, do we write the fiscal sponsorship fee into our budget?
The budget is exactly your general operating budget. There's no other question. There's no project budget. There's nothing specifically about this. It is about how you have been operating and how you continue to operate. So don't figure it into your budget and don't figure it into that information because it's already, just tell us what you've been doing in the past 2 years, if you have that budget information.
Okay, is the maximum amount to be funded half of the previous year's budget? And what if the applicant doesn't have a long documentation of previous year's expenses?
So the majority, the grant is from $5,000 to $50,000, capped at 50% of the general operating budget of the prior years. If you don't have histories, like a long history, please submit what you have. Please, we also acknowledge that this is, as you all have been working informally, you might not have some of this information, but when you look at the budget, try to build as much of a realistic budget of what you've been doing in the past and show where that is. We are asking very specifically in the grant, in the portal, but that's the only place in which this information happens. We're not asking for a 990. So we do believe that you should be able to generate the information of what it has cost you in order to operate in the past. And please try to figure out how to come up with those costs or those project questions.
Thank you, Sixto. And the last question as of right now, again, someone answered earlier, but just to recap, does your fiscal sponsor have to be based in Houston to proceed with the grant application for BIPOC by BANF?
No. The fiscal sponsor can be, as long as they are a 501c3 legally incorporated within the United States, that's fine. Your work just needs to be demonstrated here in the greater Houston, the 9-county region of Houston.
This is great. I do not see any additional questions in the Q&A or in the chat at this time.
Thank you. Again, I talk fast, I know that. And I know that there's a lot of information that is flying here. But we will be making this video and this slide deck available, but we'll make slide deck available today and I'll email it to you, and then we will try to make this video available quickly, and so that people can get access to this. Again, it is about relationships and it is about a network. Email us the questions. Engage us, and ask things specifically about that. We're not going to go into much specific details here in the info session, but it is an opportunity and it's an invitation for you all to engage with BAMP and ask us these questions, and we will answer them as best as we can. But also we have Julia, Janice, Miss Michelle, and Mr. Scales all have opened their doors and invited you into conversations. All of them have invited you to conversations throughout, in many different ways. This is just another way and as a catalyst in order to do that. I know that, there are other nonprofit organizations and other organizations that, as I mentioned before, that you can engage with. Go with where your relationships are. Go with what makes sense to you and the work that you are doing. We are not in trying to force collaborations and marriages that don't make sense. that's not a good idea. That's not what this network is about. And we also recognize the fact that like this is about potential support. This is one opportunity. We hope that the conversation that you have with your fiscal sponsor creates many other opportunities for you, whether that is an opportunity to raise other funds, or whether it's just an opportunity in order to be in communication and conversation to know that you're not alone doing this work. And so that we, as all of the people and our networks, we know what's going, that we will actually be able to know what's going on and be able to share with that and that information in this, in the opportunities. I think that this is round one of the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. We are a listening and learning organization, and we are trying to understand what the BIPOC Arts Network and the communities need right now. We understand that a number of organizations, a number of artists don't know what that is because we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and hosting and opening during these times is still unsure. We don't know what's going to happen. But we do want to be able to get money out to you all in this moment to help start 2022 in so that you have more resources to start 2022, and that there will be more opportunities for us to have conversations and opportunities to have more learning sessions in order to this. Let me make a note. This is like what is happening here in terms of final report. Most organizations and the grants require an extensive final report, asking you what you did with your money, where did it go, where the receipts are. We are asking you to know where the money went, but also to come and join us in information sessions or listening and learning sessions in 2022, so that it's not about necessarily writing things. It's about, again, us learning in community with each other, and then being able to say that this is what you all learned, this is how you utilized it. And then for us as an initiative, we're able to understand where you all utilizing this money in terms of priorities and where the needs are. And we hope that by learning through this, we can advocate better for our communities and better for you all in the future. So let me actually share the screen one more time in order to go through some very specific reminders. Again, it is about relationships. Think about the timelines. It's a really quick turnaround, but everybody has been made very clear as to when their timelines are and what the relationships can be. And be clear about what are the expectations for the sponsor and what is the expectations for you as a sponsored program or collective. The grant application portal is houstonbanf.submittable.com, and you can download the application worksheet if you want to work on the application offline. Again, I mentioned this final report. There's a listening and learning session and scheduled in 2022. The key dates, the application due date is Friday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. and that we will notify all awardees by December 20th, 2021. The payments will be dispersed in January. Assistance, the BAMF team applies application support via information sessions, scheduled meetings, phone calls, and submission desk to the support desk. If you have questions, info@houstonbanf.org, or call us during these times and we'll return your call as soon as we can. Thank you all very much. I hope that you have, are there any other questions that have come through? Yes.
There's one more question in the question and answer.
Sure.
Relative to the residency requirement, is there a minimum length of time the artist has to have resided or worked in the eligibility area?
So that's a good question, and I think it becomes a more of an aspect of how do you have a history of actually supporting the BIPOC our BIPOC communities within the greater Houston region, and so if you've been here. You could have been here just in the middle of the pandemic and been doing an awful lot of work, and that's great. You can, and so I think that there's not a specific number of years or a specific time period for that eligibility.
I just wanted to clarify too, since the person asked about artists, that it's not a grant for individual artists, that it's for organizations or collectives.
Thank you very much, Julia, for lifting that up. Yes, it is about longer term programs. It's about longer term initiatives, and it's not about an individual artist.
And if I may add something here, just to say it out loud, like this is the opportunity to dream big, you know, in the sense of the, you know, several of artists or groups, especially in BIPOC communities, we work, you know, unofficially, you know, together. Every group of artists that are consistently sharing ideas or thoughts or plotting or planning or collaborating may not necessarily be a part of an official collective. You know, this is your opportunity to share your collective vision, to share the work that you all have been doing, you know, for years, whether it's exhibiting together, volunteering in the community, restoration, conservation, so many different things that I know you wonderful artists and groups have been doing. This is the opportunity to put that on paper and present it as an initiative, something that can gain, you know, present and long-term support. So let's not look at the lack of interest for this particular opportunity in individual artist projects. Really see what this is doing or has the opportunity to do for your collective groups as well as the community as a whole. So.
Thank you so much for that, Janice. And recognizing like there are ways in which we've named certain things, but there are also ways in which y'all work that we haven't been specific about. And I think that is an opportunity for you to share some of your work and for us to acknowledge how this is happening. But again, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Mr. Ron Scales and the Community Music Center of Houston. Thank you, Julia Barbosa Landois from Fresh Arts. Thank you, Michelle Barnes and Janice Bond from the Community Artists Collective. Thank you, Yeti, and thank you all of you all for joining us. Hopefully this is an opportunity for you to share information and creating another opportunity for you to get support for the work that you've been doing. We will have another information session, a general information session on Thursday morning at 9:30. And the prior information session is actually available as a video on our YouTube page. So again, thank you all very much and have a great day and be safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.